My boss invited me to a company retreat. Now everyone thinks I seduced him to get promoted, including his wife. I'm a 30-year-old woman working in communications for a mid-sized architecture firm in Lyon. I'm not flashy. I don't party. I do my job, I'm reliable, and honestly, I've always been a bit invisible. Which is probably why, when I got the email saying I'd been selected to join the management team for a 4-day corporate retreat in Annecy, I almost thought it was a mistake. Only managers and high potentials got invited. I'm neither. I'm a project coordinator who keeps deadlines on track and calms down architects when the printers jam. I thought maybe it was an admin error. But my boss, Eric, confirmed it with a smile in the hallway. "We've noticed the work you've been putting in," he said. "You deserve some recognition." Eric is 45. Charming in that practiced way. Married, 2 kids. Always wears button-downs a little too tight. I never thought twice about him. He was polite, professional, and completely out of my league, both romantically and hierarchically. The retreat itself was strange from the start. We were only 16 employees there. 4 women, including me. The rest were men, senior, loud, wine-drinking, backslapping types. The first night, we had dinner at the chalet, followed by a bonding exercise involving card games and personal confessions. The HR guy called it building emotional vulnerability. After my turn, I said I was afraid of wasting my life. Eric looked at me differently. Softer. He started including me in more discussions. At one point, he leaned over during a group dinner and said, "You're the only one here who doesn't play a role." I like that. I didn't respond, just smiled politely. The next day, we did hikes and strategy workshops. I led one breakout session, surprisingly well, I think, and afterward, Eric clapped me on the back and said in front of everyone, "She should be running half the comms team." I laughed awkwardly. He winked. I didn't think too much of it. But that evening, things shifted. It started when I went to my room and found a note on my pillow. In Eric's handwriting. "You were brilliant today. Don't let anyone make you small. E." I stared at it for a while. Was that inappropriate? Or just encouraging? I didn't show anyone. I didn't reply. I just tucked it into my notebook and told myself it was nothing. But I guess someone else saw it. Because the next morning, the energy changed. Claire, one of the marketing managers, started avoiding me. At breakfast, she sat at the far end of the table and didn't say hello. One of the junior partners made a joke about how I must have had a private performance review with the boss. I laughed it off. But I felt the shift. It got worse. On the last night, after too many drinks, someone played a song on the Bluetooth speaker, Blurred Lines. Claire, drunk, pointed at me and said, "Oh, careful, this one might start grinding on the boss." Everyone laughed. Except me. Eric didn't say a word. Just sipped his wine and smiled like none of it was about him. That night, I went to bed early. Locked my door. The next morning, I found a message slipped under it. Different handwriting this time. "Keep spreading your legs, maybe you'll get his job too." I froze. I looked around. No one in the hall. I crumpled the note and flushed it. The bus ride back to Lyon was silent. No more winks. No more encouragement. I was back to being invisible, except now, I was invisible and branded. By Monday morning, the office buzzed with a new rumor, that Eric and I had slept together in the chalet. That I'd used it to secure a promotion. That I'd been asking for it the whole time. Eric didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He just smiled when someone joked about retreat benefits. And then his wife showed up at the office. Unannounced. She stormed into the building around noon, walked straight to the front desk, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Is she here?" That's when I realized someone had sent her something I didn't know about. And that I was about to pay the price for a fantasy I hadn't even participated in. Her name is Delphine. I'd never seen her in person before, only on social media, family Christmas photos, the occasional "congrats to my wonderful husband" post. In those pictures, she looked composed, chic, untouchable. But in the lobby of our firm that Monday, she looked like a storm in heels. My desk was tucked behind the glass wall of the communications office. I saw her before she saw me. She was speaking to the receptionist in clipped tones, her voice raised just enough to draw attention from the surrounding cubicles. "Where is Camille?" she asked, clearly enough for it to echo down the corridor. People started looking up. I froze. Delphine scanned the open space and locked eyes with me through the glass. She started walking. I panicked. I grabbed my phone, pretended to dial. Anything not to meet that energy head-on. But she was already at the door. "You," she said, not waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk." I stood up, heart hammering in my ears. "Madam, I..." She pulled something from her purse. A printed photo. It was a picture of me. At the retreat, standing in the hallway of the chalet in a robe, holding a coffee mug. Someone had taken it from behind, discreetly, with a phone, maybe through a slightly open door. But it was unmistakably me. "You looked comfortable," she said flatly. Not very professional for someone who was just there to learn. My mouth went dry. That was taken in the hallway. I was going to the kitchen. "Alone?" she asked. I didn't know what to say. Because technically, no, I wasn't alone. But I also wasn't doing anything wrong. Not then, not ever. Delphine leaned in. Her voice dropped. "You think you're the first one he's tried this with? The first he fed lines about potential and ambition to? You're not special. You're just cheaper." The words hit like cold water. "I didn't sleep with your husband," I said. Quiet, but firm. She looked at me. For a second, I thought I saw something flicker. Doubt? Fatigue? But then it was gone. "You didn't have to," she said. "He'll protect you anyway. He always does." And then she left. Just walked out, like she'd ticked a box on a list. When I turned around, my entire team was pretending not to have heard everything through the glass walls. But no one made eye contact. No one said anything. Not even Eric. Especially not Eric. He avoided me for the rest of the day. Then the rest of the week. My inbox stayed full of neutral tasks, report updates, minutes to write, meeting invites without explanations. Nothing personal. Nothing direct. The real punishment was silence. And outside that silence? Whispers. The office had fully turned against me. Not with open hostility, but with isolation. My lunch breaks became solo. People who used to greet me with a nod now conveniently forgot I was there. I found out from a temp that a group chat had been made. I wasn't in it, obviously. She said it was called Retreat Royalty. Guess who the joke was about? And still, Eric said nothing. No denial. No apology. Nothing. Until Friday. That's when I got called into HR. The head of HR, Alan, had a fake friendly tone I'd heard only once before, during a layoff 2 years prior. He gestured for me to sit. "There's been some confusion," he started. I said nothing. "It's come to our attention that your presence on the retreat may have led to misunderstandings among staff." I blinked. "You mean the rumors?" He didn't like the word. "Perceptions." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "So people talk behind my back, someone takes a photo of me without consent, your director's wife comes in and publicly humiliates me, and I'm the issue?" He held up his hands. "Nobody's accusing you of anything, Camille. But to ease tensions, we'd like to suggest a temporary departmental rotation." There it was. Not a firing. Not a demotion. Just a quiet little exile, out of sight. Out of mind. "Let me guess," I said. "Where are you putting me? Facilities? Data entry?" Alan smiled, like that was supposed to calm me. Marketing. Just for a few weeks. Marketing. Where Claire worked. The woman who made that grinding joke. I stood up. You know what? Do whatever you want. But just so we're clear, I never touched that man. He dragged me into this, and none of you had the spine to say anything because he's your boss. I left before he could respond. That night, I cried in the shower. Not just from shame, but from rage, because in the end, it didn't matter whether I'd done anything wrong. The rumor was stronger than the truth. And the truth? Was still locked in my notebook drawer. Right next to Eric's note. The one that said I was brilliant. The one that ruined my life. I didn't go to work on Monday. I told HR I was sick. No one followed up. I guess that made it easier for them. Tuesday, I got added to a new email thread with the subject line Marketing Integration, Temporary Placement. Claire was CC'd. So was Alan. So was Eric. He didn't reply. He never replied. I stared at the screen, wondering if he even remembered what he wrote me. Wondering if he realized how fast I was being erased from the only place I had ever truly felt competent. By Wednesday, I showed up at the marketing desk. Claire didn't even look up. You're on the side desk, she said. Don't touch the budget files. Cool, welcome. I lasted 3 hours before I went to the bathroom and vomited from the tension. It wasn't the work. It was the presence. The feeling that every move I made was being measured, logged, judged. That people had already written the story for me, the pretty girl who got too close to the boss. The girl who confused attention for talent. But I didn't flirt. I didn't seduce. I just existed in a room where a man with power chose to look at me like I mattered. And now I was paying the price for his projection. That Friday, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Claire's computer screen. She left it open during lunch. I was passing by. I wasn't snooping. But the chat was right there. A private Slack conversation with Eric. Claire, she's going to break. I give it a week. Eric, she's dramatic. Just let her spiral. I'll clean it up after. I felt like I'd been slapped. He wasn't just silent. He was actively playing the narrative. Letting it happen. Even encouraging it. And Claire, who had always smiled at me in meetings, shared taxi rides to events, complimented my outfits, was delighting in it. I took a photo with my phone before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet. But I knew it was the first proof I had. That night, I met with an old friend, Lucy, who worked in HR for another firm. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. Then she said something that stuck in my bones. Camille, what you're describing isn't just office politics. It's reputational sabotage. It's gendered. It's targeted, and you need to start documenting everything. So I did. I created a folder. I named it Retreat Fallout. Screenshots. Voice memos. Emails. The photo of the chat between Eric and Claire. Then I opened a blank document. And I started writing. Everything. From the first day of the retreat. Every comment. Every note. Every look. I cried while I typed. But I kept going. It took me 5 days. When I finished, I had 11 pages. I sent them to myself, to a friend, and to a lawyer Lucy recommended. The lawyer called me the next day. Said I wasn't crazy. Said I wasn't overreacting. Said this was the kind of thing that companies hope people are too scared to speak up about. But you've documented well, she said. And if you're ready, we can push back. The thought terrified me. I didn't want to be the woman who sued. I just wanted my name back. But the moment I read Eric's line again, let her spiral. I'll clean it up after, something shifted. He thought he could manage me like a project. Like a problem to clean up. He forgot I knew how to write. He forgot I had a voice. So I told my lawyer, let's do it, and for the first time in weeks, I slept without waking up in a panic. Because I wasn't silent anymore. The first move was subtle. My lawyer drafted a formal complaint to HR, citing harassment, defamation, and workplace retaliation. It was professional, clinical, and terrifyingly precise. We included the screenshot of the Slack conversation between Eric and Claire. We referenced the photo that had been taken of me in a robe. We attached the 11-page document where I laid out everything: the timeline, the notes, the rumors, the exclusion, the temporary reassignment, and the silence. Especially the silence. HR called me in the next morning. Not a land this time. A woman from headquarters. Neutral tone. Almost too neutral. Camille, she began, we want to make sure this matter is handled appropriately. Until this is resolved, we're putting you on paid administrative leave. It felt like getting shoved out the door with a smile. But I nodded. Fine. I have no problem leaving. But I expect full transparency in the investigation. She didn't answer that. Just clicked her pen and said I could pack my things by the end of the day. When I returned to my desk, Claire wasn't there. Her screen was dark. I wasn't told why. No one was. But I had a guess. I packed in silence. No one said goodbye. No one even made eye contact. I was radioactive. Before leaving, I slipped one last note into my own drawer, just like Eric had done to me. Except mine wasn't a compliment. It read, "The truth has a funny way of surviving liars." I didn't expect it to be found. But writing it made me feel a little less erased. Over the next 2 weeks, I stayed home and tried to breathe. Tried. But my name was still out there. People were whispering on LinkedIn. Someone posted an anonymous comment under the firm's Glassdoor page that said, "Beware of office affairs gone wrong, HR won't protect you unless you're the favorite." It got removed a few days later. But I'd seen it. Others had too. Meanwhile, my lawyer kept me updated. The internal investigation had reached a sensitive stage. Apparently, Eric was panicking. Not just because of me, but because someone else had come forward. A former assistant. Someone he'd hired 2 years ago. She'd left suddenly. No one had ever said why. Now I knew. She submitted a written testimony, said Eric had once leaned over her desk and whispered, "I like ambitious women. I reward them." She'd laughed nervously, and he replied, "I'm not joking." No one believed her at the time. But now? With my file, with the Slack messages, with the retreat scandal, HR had no choice but to listen. By week 3, I got the call. Eric was stepping down from his role, effective immediately. No mention of me. No public statement. Just a quiet update on the company intranet, buried under quarterly revenue stats. I stared at the screen for a full minute. This man had ruined my reputation, gaslight an entire office, let his wife storm in and humiliate me publicly, and he got to step down. No apology. No accountability. Just an exit package and the promise to spend more time with family. I wanted to scream. My lawyer said it was actually a victory. "Most of these cases don't even make it that far," she said. "You made him leave." But I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Because even though the source was gone, the damage remained. I returned to work a week later. Same office. Same walls. But nothing felt the same. The whispers had stopped, but so had the warmth. People didn't know how to look at me. Some were supportive in that distant way, too polite to ask, too afraid to be caught caring. Claire was gone. On sabbatical, apparently. No one said for how long. My job was reinstated. Full salary. Official apology from HR, internally, of course, not public. They even offered a compensation bonus, which I accepted. Not because it fixed anything, but because I needed it. Still, I noticed something strange: new faces. HR had hired 2 new coordinators. Both women. Both young. I looked at them during one lunch break and thought, does it start like this for everyone? With a compliment? With a smile? I wanted to warn them. I wanted to say, don't trust the praise. It's always got a price. But I stayed silent. For now. Because the storm wasn't over. Just redirected. And I wasn't done telling the truth. My return to work felt like entering a building where a crime had happened, but no one was allowed to say what it was. Everything looked the same desks, same coffee machine, same office plants, but something was off in the air, like a silent agreement to pretend nothing had happened. They had placed me back in my original team, communications, but my actual responsibilities were vague. I had access to files again. Meetings started including me again. But everyone walked on eggshells around me. I had become that woman. Not the one who stood up, not the one who got justice, just the one who brought shame to the office by daring to tell the truth. A few people tried to test the waters. Sylvain, a junior dev who never used to talk to me, offered to grab coffee together. I said yes. We sat in the break room, and after a few pleasantries, he dropped it, so, was it worth it? I froze. What do you mean? He shrugged. I mean, yeah, Eric's gone, but, now no one will go near you. Doesn't it feel like a Pyrrhic win? I stared at him. He was waiting for me to agree, to say I regretted everything. I wasn't trying to win, I said quietly. I was trying to not be destroyed. He didn't understand. I could tell. That night, I cried on my bathroom floor again. Not because I felt weak, but because being right hadn't brought me any peace. It had brought me clarity, and with that, loneliness. I knew now, beyond a doubt, how deeply broken the system was. And how even good people I had laughed with at lunch, people who sent me cat videos, had watched me burn and done nothing. One morning, I came in early and found a printed paper left on my desk, just one sentence on it. Next time, close your robe. No name. No context. Just placed carefully on my keyboard like a knife. I took a photo. Added it to the folder. But this time, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I forwarded the image to HR. Then to my lawyer. By noon, I had filed a second complaint. The firm's legal department called me directly this time. They were visibly nervous. The case had started growing outside the company. A journalist had emailed me a week before, asking if I'd be willing to talk off the record. I hadn't replied then. But now? I was seriously considering it. That same week, I got a message from someone unexpected. Delphine. Eric's wife. It came through Instagram. Just a simple DM, you were right. I'm sorry. I didn't want to believe it, but I know now. He did the same to someone before you. I found emails. I left him. I read it over and over. I didn't know what to feel. Relief? Sadness? Bitterness? Maybe all of it. I replied after an hour, thank you. I'm sorry for you, too. She sent a final message, you didn't ruin anything. He did. I see that now. If you need someone to back your version of the story, I will. I didn't know if I'd take her up on it. But it felt like the first honest offering I'd received since this nightmare began. Later that week, I booked a session with a therapist. The firm would reimburse it, part of their wellness support program. The irony didn't escape me. But I needed it. I sat on that couch and told a stranger how I'd started seeing myself through their eyes, manipulative, seductive, dangerous. How even though I knew I'd done nothing wrong, part of me felt permanently tainted. As if just being accused had made me guilty. She listened. Really listened, and then she said something that stuck. You didn't lose your integrity. You had it tested. And you kept it. That sentence stayed with me. I clung to it every time I walked into that office and felt the sideways glances. Every time someone cleared their throat when I walked by. Every time someone whispered a little too softly at the water cooler. I didn't lose my integrity. I kept it. And that, I was starting to realize, was what made me dangerous. The day my story leaked was the first time I felt like the ground under me was finally shifting, for better or worse. I hadn't planned it. I hadn't sent anything. But someone had. Maybe Delphine, maybe the ex-assistant, maybe a third person I'll never know. Either way, an anonymous exposé appeared on a popular workplace blog. The headline was vague enough to avoid legal risk, but specific enough for everyone in my office to know exactly who it was about. When promotions come with strings, a junior executive speaks out on power, silence, and retaliation. They used excerpts from my own writing, sections from the 11-page timeline I'd created. It wasn't a full dump, but enough to paint the picture. The praise, the silence, the retreat, the rumors, the punishment. Even the quote from Eric, "Let her spiral. I'll clean it up after." It went viral inside 24 hours. By the next morning, someone had slipped a printout onto the office kitchen table. Highlighted. Annotated. As if they were studying it for a test. That same day, 3 other women from different departments contacted me privately. None of them had ever said a word to me before. All 3 shared stories, small, almost identical stories. How Eric would invite them to private feedback sessions, how he liked mentoring ambitious young women, how things always felt a little off. Nothing illegal. Just wrong. But they'd never reported anything because, in their words, who'd believe us? Now? They were asking me if I'd go public, really public. Not just a blog post. They were asking if I'd help them push for change. Maybe even form a group. Take it higher. I said I needed to think. And I did. I thought a lot. Not just about Eric, but about the system that let him exist for so long. About the people who said nothing. About Claire and her smug messages. About Sylvain, who thought silence was easier. About HR, who cared more about corporate risk than human damage. About myself. The girl who once just wanted to be good at her job. Who never asked for power, just dignity. And the more I thought, the more I realized, I couldn't go back to pretending this didn't happen. That I could just quietly recover and let the next woman fall into the same trap. So I said yes. We formed a small group, informal at first. Just emails, coffee meetups. Anonymous testimony collection. Then a journalist reached out directly. Not a blog this time. A real newspaper. National level. She wanted to talk. She had heard about the blog and had been chasing the story for weeks. I met her in a quiet cafe near Montmartre. Wore sunglasses like I was someone worth hiding. She was gentle, but sharp. She asked the right questions. She had receipts. She wanted to do this right. And I let her. I told her everything. Not for revenge. But for truth. The article dropped 2 weeks later. Front page of the business section. Inside the fall of a corporate star, power, silence, and the women who fought back. They didn't name me directly. But the details were there. And I gave my blessing. That morning, my inbox exploded. Some were messages of support. Former colleagues, strangers, even people from other companies. Some were less kind. I got called a liar, an attention seeker, a career destroyer. One anonymous email said, "You've ruined a good man's life because he didn't love you back." But I didn't flinch. Because I knew what had happened. And now so did the world. Eric was done. Not just in our company, everywhere. His LinkedIn was wiped clean. The firm had quietly removed his profile weeks ago, but now the silence had turned into denial. They called it an isolated misjudgment. They distanced themselves like he'd never been part of their rise. Cowards. And yet, I wasn't angry. I was something else. Exhausted. Liberated. Sad. Empowered. All of it at once. And beneath all that, relieved. Because now, when I walked into work, I wasn't invisible. I was seen. And that, after everything, was the most dangerous thing a woman like me could be. After the article, things didn't calm down, they crystallized. Like the dust had finally settled, and everyone could see exactly where they stood. The firm didn't publicly comment beyond a vague press release. We remained committed to fostering a safe and inclusive work environment, the usual hollow corporate fluff. But inside the office, the dynamics had shifted in a way that couldn't be reversed. Some people avoided me completely. Like my presence was a liability now. They didn't want to be seen talking to me. I noticed conversations stop when I entered a room. I wasn't paranoid, it was blatant. One guy actually got up and changed seats in a meeting when I sat beside him. But others surprised me. Julie from accounting, who used to barely acknowledge me, started having lunch with me in the courtyard. Luke from logistics offered to walk me to the metro one evening just in case. Even Alan, the passive HR manager, looked me in the eye for the first time in months and said, "I read the article. I believe you." It meant something. Not everything, but something. There was one more person I hadn't heard from since it all blew up. Claire. She had disappeared during the investigation, on extended personal leave. But after the article, someone told me she had quietly resigned. No goodbye party. No notice in the internal newsletter. Just gone. One afternoon, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from her. "Camille, you probably hate me, and I don't blame you. I let my own bitterness and insecurity poison how I saw you. I helped spread lies because I was jealous, not of you and Eric, but of how he treated you like you mattered. I should have protected you. Instead, I became exactly the kind of woman I swore I'd never be. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't change what I did. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I read it 3 times. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just folded it and placed it in the same folder where I'd kept everything, retreat fallout. That folder had become my personal archive of survival. But I was finally starting to think I wouldn't need to add to it anymore. Weeks passed. Then months. The firm started implementing actual changes. Mandatory training, anonymous surveys, a new ombudsman who actually listened. It was too late to undo the damage, but I wasn't naive. Systems only change when they're forced to. I was that force. And I was tired. So when a headhunter reached out to me with an offer from a different firm, a startup in Berlin, smaller team, progressive culture, I didn't hesitate. I accepted the offer 2 weeks later. During my final meeting with HR, they asked if I'd like to participate in an exit interview. I said no. Some things aren't interviews. Some things are lived truths. On my last day, I packed slowly. People came by. Some hugged me. Some just nodded. A few whispered, "Thank you." And then, right before I left, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. The same drawer where I had once hidden Eric's note. I pulled out a fresh piece of paper. And I wrote, "Believe the first instinct. Always. Silence protects no one." I folded it. Left it there. Maybe someone will find it one day. Maybe they'll need it. Or maybe they'll never have to. And maybe that will be, in some quiet way, part of what I helped change. Berlin was colder than I remembered, but in the best way. Clean air, quieter mornings, no one at the coffee shop pretending not to stare at me like back home. In this new company, no one knew my story, at least not at first. I was just Camille. Not the woman from the article. Not the girl in the robe. Just me. And it felt surreal. Like being reborn, but with the scars still visible if you knew where to look. My first few weeks were quiet. I kept my head down, got to know the team, stayed out of the spotlight. But inevitably, my past followed. Someone forwarded the article to my new manager, probably trying to stir something. He called me into his office, closed the door, and said, "I read your story. It was brave." I waited for the but. It never came. He just added, "Let us know how we can make this a space where you feel safe." Truly. I nodded. "Thank you," was all I could say. Because honestly, I wasn't sure what safety looked like anymore. But it was a start. One day, during lunch, I noticed a new intern, Anais, getting cornered by an older project lead. His body language was familiar, looming, hand too close to her arm, smiling just a little too long. She was laughing politely, but her eyes kept darting to the exit. I stood up, walked over, and said, "Hey Anais, can you help me with something in the meeting room?" She followed me like I was pulling her out of a burning building. Later, she thanked me. Said she hadn't known what to do. I just said, "Always trust your gut. Even when they tell you you're overreacting." That night, I realized I'd become someone I never imagined I'd be. Not just the woman who survived, but the woman who watched for smoke before it became fire. I still think about Eric sometimes. Not because I miss him, I don't. But because I know there are hundreds of men like him out there. Smiling. Waiting. And 1,000 women too scared to speak up. I don't want revenge anymore. I don't need him ruined. I just want a world where we're believed the first time. Where silence isn't our only protection. Where dignity isn't a gamble based on whether someone powerful decides we're worth respecting. And I want to be someone who makes that world just a little closer. So if someone ever finds this, if you're reading and wondering whether to speak up, to fight back, to risk your job or your peace or your comfort, I can't promise it'll be easy. But I can promise you this, you are not alone. And you don't owe anyone your silence. I still don't know if I've fully healed. Some days are better than others. But I've stopped asking if it was all worth it. Because the truth is, I didn't do this for some happy ending. I did it so the next woman doesn't have to. And that's enough for me.
Follow me for more stories.